G'day guys, how you going? Welcome back to Market Update for Zuccoli Aspire. I think we're up to about number 11 or something, aren't we, Macca?
Yes.
Gentleman that I just spoke to over there, we got Adam McCann, who is the sales manager for Zuccoli Aspire. And on my close right here, we're very lucky to have Hermanus Lau, who is the, now, what have we got? Project manager for Zuccoli Aspire.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic, great to have you along, mate. Fantastic to have you here. And myself, of course, who you know from previous shots, I'm Glenn Grantham, General Manager, Rain and Horn in Darwin. Today, as I say, lucky to have Hermanus here. We get the opportunity to obviously see a little bit behind the scenes as to what's been going on. Obviously, we're madly moving towards title issue on 1A and construction out there on 1B. Mm-hmm. How's it all been going, mate?
Well, as we always say, it's imminent. Unfortunately, there's been a bit of rain over the last weekend, so we were hoping to get all our asphalting done prior to this weekend. It's unfortunately delayed a little bit because of that rain now. We're looking at finalising that this week, getting all the authorities out this week as well. So we've got a few booked in. We've got some sign-offs already from entomology, from the fireries. We've got the DLRM boys out there already looking at some of the sites. We've got City of Palmerston coming out later this week. Power and Water is going out a bit later this week as well. So there's a few authorities that's already doing the inspections and getting close to getting all that sign-off for us. So by the end of this week, once the black stuff is all down, we should be ready to get our titles into the government and try and get our titles out as soon as possible, you know. So
that's good. That gives us a bit of, actually, and I'm glad that you've actually given us a bit of the process there and so many little bits and pieces that need to be ticked off before you can actually go down the path of titling. Obviously, Macca, you know, the most common question that you're getting at the moment is what?
Yeah. When?
Yeah.
When?
How come?
When?
Why?
And that gives us a little bit of insight into so many of the certificates, I suppose,
yeah, well,
that you need to go through.
I guess it's a bit of it's a big process actually, because once you actually get all your services in the ground and once you've actually got all your asphalting done, there's, you know, as constructed documentation that needs to be created. There's test data that needs to be created. There's certain hold and test points that needs to be signed off and ticked off by the certified engineers. So there's quite a few steps to take before you can actually get the authorities on the ground, you know. So we've undertaken most of those steps now, and most of those have been closed out. Once you've got the authorities on site and they are happy with the product they see, you know, so there's no defects or major, you know, defects, they will then give you your clearance documentation. That clearance documentation effectively you submit to the Development Consent Authority against your permit, and that creates the opportunity then to go to the titling office and actually produce the titles. And as we said previously, that's outside our control as to how long that takes. However, at the moment the guys are working quite well at the surveyor's office, and generally it's taking about 2 to 3 weeks they're telling us at the moment. So fingers crossed, we'll once we get to the end of this week and we get everything in the ground, we'll be quick after that, I hope.
Now, it is interesting out there in social media. It was one of the things we get criticised quite often about what we're doing. Are we just sitting around going lunches and doing all that sort of stuff? I can actually verify that we had a lunch a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, and Hermanus couldn't come because he was too busy. But obviously, Hermanus has had a huge amount of experience in relation to this stuff in the Northern Territory, and specifically that was the reason why he was employed as part of this process. It's not like this is the first timer for you, is it, mate?
No. Look, my background is engineering, and I've developed subdivisions around the world. You know, I've worked in the Middle East and the UK, but in Darwin, I was involved in Ballamac and then Mitchell Creek Green next door to us, and that's brought me perfectly in line to do this work here at Zuccoli Aspire. You know, so obviously the most exciting project in Darwin at the moment, biggest of its kind. You know, so it's very exciting. There's a town centre we're planning. There's a school going in, so there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, you know. And the other really good thing we're seeing at the moment is we're working with our landscaping architects, and all the ideas and concepts they're coming up with. It's going to create a community where the people living there are going to have something that they can really enjoy. They can be outside, they can go and have a walk. You've got a little paths that take you down to the creek, and I've personally gone down there and cycled around there, and it's unbelievable. You know, you've got little waterfalls and little splash pools and stuff, and if you don't mind the kids getting wet, then brilliant place to take them to go for a
Well, if you
walk.
minded the kids getting wet, you wouldn't be in Darwin, would you?
There you go.
Just a quick one to go back on that. Something else that's popped up in social media because of obviously the delays that we've experienced. There's been speculation by the purchasers and public surrounding the development that there might be something wrong with what's going on with Zuccoli Aspire. Is this any different with anything else that you've developed in the Northern Territory, in as much as there's nothing there that is presenting as a problem with the blocks or anything along those lines, is there?
No, no. Look, it's the common process that we're following at the moment. I think what I can say is our contractors, Ostajic, is doing a fantastic job. I think the quality of build is really, really good. It is obviously a first stage. There's a team that needs to come together and learn how each other operates and how we all work as a team together. So the engineers are finding their feet, the contractors are finding their feet, we as developers are finding our feet. And obviously as we get into the next stage, the third stage, things just start rolling through, it becomes a lot easier. And that's just projects, that's just common for any project. But that said, what I can promise is once the subdivision, once the roads go in, it's going to be quite good quality build. The stuff I've seen on site so far is good. It looks very nice.
One of the things, Adam and I have been out there a lot to just check and see how the process is going along and how the progress is happening. One of the things that I notice every single time I go out there is the position allows for an interesting different climate condition. You notice that, mate? Yeah. I'm talking about the breezeways.
Yeah.
Standing up on top of that hill, the breeze coming through is absolutely incredible. And,
that's right.
And I hope, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is create open pathways for that breeze to come through and get the benefit of that. It's been at least 2 or 3 degrees cooler up on that hill than what it has when I'm out the Palmerston office.
That's right.
Quite incredible. It's quite an elevated position, especially with 1A and 1B. That seems to be the highest point of our. And I think A1 and B1 are of a similar sort of height.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So those first stages are at the top of the hill, at the crest. So they will obviously get the best views and get the best breezes coming through. But that said, as we start going down towards the bottom, closer to the creek, the future subdivision of Mitchell is quite a while away. And what we've been told about the subdivision is that there will be larger rural kind of lots. So I think the guys buying and Zuccoli Aspire will have the opportunity to live very close to like a rural kind of lifestyle, being close to that kind of blocks, but also have the amenities that the subdivision that will provide, your town centre, your parklands, all that kind of stuff that you don't really get in a rural subdivision. So I think you've got best of both worlds here,
While we're just talking on that town centre side of things, I mean, this to me seems to, when I'm talking to you and talking to Mike, it seems to be a really exciting project for you guys to get your teeth into, because it seems to encompass everything. That's right. Would that be a fair statement to make? Well, it's one of the more exciting ones that you've come across.
That's right. I mean, the town centre is still in design phase, so what goes in there is a question of who's willing to commit to actually building in there, and which key tenants we get. So if we get a Coles or a Woolies or a IGA or whoever comes in as a key tenant, that will dictate what kind of requirements they have, and then also with the peripheral services in there. So maybe ideally we'd like to see a bar, we'd like to see, I wouldn't say bar, town centre where there's maybe a little restaurant or I don't know. That's still in design phase. So, but it is exciting. Yes, you're right.
It is exciting stuff. It certainly. I know, Mackie, you've been pretty excited every time we've gone out there. Tell me what's pressing your buttons the most at the moment.
Oh, look, what I really like to see out there is, yes, 1A isn't quite at the title stage, but 1B doesn't look that far away. So, just going out there, can you give us a bit of an update where that is as well? Because it looks like we're going to have a lot of titled land pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right. So, our contractors gave us a new updated program in it last week that includes 1B, and they've kind of brought that date forwards a little bit. Now, generally speaking, as developers, we'd like to allow ourselves a little bit more lenience, like a little bit more fat, I'd say, in the program. So at this stage, it's still looking at 6 weeks after stage 1A, sorry. But they are tracking quite well. The services are going in really quickly now, and as soon as all the services are going, they'll obviously start that roadworks and get the asphalting down. So I think it won't be too far off.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I get asked regularly about where is it at, what's going on, so they'd be pretty happy to hear that. So.
That's right, and I think I think we're all excited as purchasers. Everyone's keen as mustard to get into their houses, but 6 months from now you're in your house. You've got a beautiful place. You've got a beautiful park in stage 1 that the kids going to go and enjoy, and all this time would have been forgotten. You would it's in distant memory already. So.
I was only talking to somebody the other day who experienced a delay in relation to a flight And I said I'd rather a plane that lands rather than one that lands on time.
That's right.
And that's a little bit the same, isn't it? What we're talking about is I'd rather have a community that is delivered and looking absolutely sensational than necessarily just hit that time point and wasn't necessarily as great as it could have been.
That's right.
And
Well, I mean, Mike and I have put in a lot of work to make sure our design guidelines are supportive of all the builders, you know. The aesthetics of the estate is upheld. We've also worked very hard with the authorities and with our engineers to make sure that we get the best services in the ground, so that there's no defects. Once you have your house in the ground, there shouldn't be any worries, you know. So we've spent a lot of time and a lot of work to try and get all this right now, so there's no future problems.
Well, you guys deliver a lot of things that I've noticed, you know, just around the periphery, listening to you talk to builders that aren't necessarily always delivered to builders in other estates. And I think that's you know, you're going that one step further. I think that's what's one of the things that's excited me is about how complete you guys and professional you are in delivering that project, that entire package.
That's right.
And I know where I was alluding to before about how excited Macca is to be involved in that. I mean, he gets out there and he starts rubbing his hands together and saying, "Look at this! I've sold all of this land out here," you know. And just that it's nice to have that association with something that you look at that you think is going to be a quality product, and that's what you guys are putting the work in behind the scenes.
That's right. I mean, I think we're one of the first developers in Darwin who's really taken the time to sit down with each of the builders and understand their needs, understand what they would like to, as a best practice to put into well, first of all, display village, and then continuously throughout the development and building their product, you know. So we have, for instance, this Thursday we have a builders information night where we sit down with all the builders. We'll tell them what's coming up. We'll ask them of their opinions of what they would like to see, or where they've had some heartaches with for instance, the council or with other authorities where there's additional requirements of them to construct certain items, you know. So we always try and assist us where we can, where we've got any ability to assist, you know. So
that might be something for us to chat with a couple of the builders on Thursday night and see about getting them on a vlog.
Yeah.
To talk about their
definitely.
experience with our
maybe a good
as well.
idea, yeah.
And with the builders information night as well, like we've previously had Doug Lesh involved from the Department of Planning, which explaining a few rules for the builders, and this week I think we've got people from People's Choice actually coming on board, and Lee Heavey from Department of Housing as well, just to clarify a few little issues for the builders. So
and People's Choice is playing a very big part in this, aren't they?
And they are, and it's good to educate the builders for what their clients can actually do to come to them as well. So, you know, we try and incorporate as much as we can to help everyone. So we're not just looking out for ourselves, we want the builders that we work in conjunction with to be happy and satisfied as well.
Now, before we finish up, I just want to, obviously, there was actually another question on social media I saw the other day about A1, and they say they're obviously feeling like the forgotten purchases in this process, because obviously we're concentrating on the 1A, 1B because that's getting towards delivery stage. A1 and B1, one of the questions was, same question everybody asked, what sort of time frames? Yeah. What's your take on that at the moment? What's the latest update?
Well, A1 unfortunately has got a little bit of this delay on the actual start because we're waiting for final sign-off on one of the designs.
Oh, okay.
Now that there is imminent, as I understand, and it's due to just some water connections that we need to sort out with where we place a secondary supply of water. But that said, once we actually get on the ground, it'll be a quick process because it's a smaller stage. It's not a very overly complicated stage. The contractors are gearing themselves up now for that. They've got all the drawings, they've got all the plans, so that all they need to do is just put their planning in place. So that once we get those approvals, they get to go. You know, and I don't think we're far off from getting that. So.
We were speculating the other day in relation to A1 and B1. A1, would we be correct where the large machinery is in the pen there? Is that about the start of where A1 starts from?
Yeah, actually you're right. That would be the start of it. So there's a bit of bushland just next to those machinery there that will need to get cleared.
Yeah.
And that forms part of A1. I think our intention would be to do A1 and B at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, so effectively construct the whole two stages as in one go. But obviously, as I say, that's dependent on all the approvals going through. You know, so
now there is rumour that we're going to make these numbers and stages easier to understand, isn't it? There is rumour. We're trying to make these easy for you guys to be, to be palatable, but we'll work on that as we go through.
It's always the discussion every developer has at the start of a project. All right, what do we call the project? And secondly, what do we call individual stages? Because it's stages 1 to 6, and then precincts A to B, and some developers have some other naming convention, but whatever, we're trying to make it as easy as possible.
Stay tuned for clarification on that.
I get it, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. Well, at least you know what you're selling. That's important to you guys. Macca, anything you'd like to add before we go?
No, that's pretty much clarifies everything. Yeah, no, thanks, Manus, for coming on board today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly.
Anything you wanted to add? Just over to the guys.
No, look, obviously we, as I said before, we try and make the process as easy as possible for you guys, for the builders, and also the purchasers. So if there's questions that you guys have, and if the purchasers have questions, raise them to us directly on Facebook, or send us an email, or give us a call. We're happy to address anything you have. I mean, my telephone number, Macca has got it. Feel free to give me a call. Not at 12 o'clock though.
I'll forward it on to whoever likes it.
Don't give her out my phone number. Right. That's all from me. That's all from them. Hope you have a great day, and catch you the next update.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.